US President Donald Trump issues another warning to Hamas a day after he presented the 20-point peace plan to bring Gaza war to end. Trump has said that Hamas has 3 to 4 days to respond to the deal. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu stressed that he has not agreed to a Palestinian state in Washington talks. He said it is not mentioned in the plan proposed by US President Donald Trump. Israel has now claimed that there are documents that show links between activist Mission Aid Flotilla and Hamas. The Israel Foreign Ministry says explicitly mentioned that the Palestinian Conference for Palestinians functions as a Hamas representative body abroad, operating as Hamas embassies. US President Donald Trump has picked Tony Blair, the former UK Prime Minister, and himself to oversee the Gaza under an American plan to end the war. The Board of Peace will be reportedly chaired by Trump. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu expressed regret over the attack on Doha in a 3-way phone call with his Qatari counterpart. Following this, a trilateral mechanism has been set up to address mutual grievances in the Middle East. Qatar says it is satisfied after the security guarantees that were provided to Doha in that 3-way phone call. US President Donald Trump said that his administration is considering attacking drug cartels coming by land in Venezuela. This comes after the US military struck several boats it claimed were carrying illicit drugs from Venezuela. A building has collapsed at an Islamic boarding school in East Java in Indonesia, trapping dozens of children. 3 students have been reportedly killed in the tragic accident and 8 people have been pulled out of the rubble. 65 continue to remain missing. All right, the big story of the hour. The Israeli Foreign Ministry has now issued a statement on social media claiming that Israel has discovered official Hamas documents in the Gaza Strip revealing links between Hamas and the leaders involved in the flotilla aid to Gaza. The Foreign Ministry of Israel claimed that the documents were discovered at a Hamas outpost in the Gaza Strip. The Israeli ministry accused the Palestinian Conference for Palestinians Abroad, which is also called PCPA, of serving under Hamas under the pretense of civilian cover and being funded directly through Hamas. The first document released by the ministry is a letter from then Hamas head of the political bureau, Ismail Haniyeh, calling on the PCPA chairman for unity and endorsing the organization. The second document contains a list of PCPA operatives, including Zahir Birawi, who has led demonstration flotillas to Gaza Strip for the past 15 years. The ministry also accused PCPA-aligned operatives of owning ships participating in the Sumud flotilla. Israel has consistently raised questions over the activists' intentions and has blockaded the flotillas sending aid to Gaza. Joining me on the telecast is Gedalia Bloom. She a Middle East affairs expert. Gedalia, thank you very much. And of course, your first response to the claim that has been made, which is quite shocking. The Israeli Foreign Ministry claims that there are direct links between the flotilla operators and Hamas, and they have been working together in tandem for years together.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'll tell you, I mean, I'm not shocked. I don't think any Israeli is shocked. I don't think anybody who pays attention is shocked. I think what we're mostly shocked is that it was only Hamas's signature on the documents that were being communicated back and forth to the flotilla ships, and not only, you know, and not Iran or Qatar or the Muslim Brotherhood. I think that anybody who understands what's going on today would understand that what Israel is facing against Hamas is a conspiracy of the Muslim Brotherhood embedding itself into every single civilian population in the Western world and taking advantage of the laws and the rights that are allotted to them in order to upend Western civilization. So in this big picture, there is absolutely no shock from the Israeli perspective that Hamas has direct links to this flotilla. But it's reporting, I think, in the hope that those people who may be shocked will start to open up their eyes and understand that this is way beyond an Israeli problem and much more in a Western civilization problem, where these people who are based, Hamas operatives, who are based in Spain, who are based in UK, are operating freely. And I think that this needs to be completely shut down, just like they shut down the Muslim Brotherhood in the Gulf Arab states. I think it's time that the Western world follows suit to the Arab Gulf states and also bans the Muslim Brotherhood and all of their affiliates.
Right, absolutely. Also, the fact that the latest flotilla that was sent with humanitarian aid to Gaza was sailing towards Gaza Strip was sent by the Italian government. Now, so the fact that there has now been this proof that the Foreign Ministry of Israel claims in terms of the documents that have been released, a link between the flotilla operators, like I said, and Hamas, how do you think the Italian government and the Spanish government that is also coming out in aid of the flotilla said that it is going to be sending its ships to protect these the flotilla and the members who were sailing on the flotilla? How do you think they are going to react to this?
I mean, listen, we certainly don't have a friend in Spain as the sitting president, but I do know that the overwhelming majority of Spanish do not support him. They see him as corrupt. They see him using the Israel-Palestinian issue as cover for his corruption. So, we don't take this seriously, and I think this is all virtual signaling that they are placating to their very loud minority of jihad supporters on the street. But when it comes to this flotilla entering into Israeli waters, I pretty much guarantee you are not going to see any foreign state-owned military ships enter into Israeli waters, because that would be a significant increase in the situation, and Israel will have rights to sink some ships. And I don't think anybody wants that.
Okay. All right. Gedalia Blum, thank you very much for joining me on the telecast and sharing your views. US President Donald Trump has said that Hamas has 3 to 4 days to respond to the Gaza peace deal. Trump has said that he is giving Hamas about 3 to 4 days, and if Hamas does not accept it, it is going to be a very sad end.
Well, we're going to do about 3 or 4 days. We'll see how it is. All of the Arab countries are signed up. The Muslim countries all signed up. Israel's all signed up. We're just waiting for Hamas. And Hamas is either going to be doing it or not. And if it's not, it's going to be a very sad end.
Gedalia Blum back on the show with me. Gedalia, this is not the first time that a warning has been issued by the US president. After the peace deal plan, the 20-pointer plan that has been released by the US administration, there's yet another threat, yet another warning that comes from US President Donald Trump. Do you think there is any positive response that is going to be channeled towards a very substantive peace deal coming from Hamas's end?
Well, I think what we're seeing differently is that in the past couple of years, we've been seeing Qatar as being the home of negotiations. And Qatar, of course, has been funneling money to Hamas, has been using Hamas as a proxy. So there was never, ever any kind of hope that any deal would actually, any final deal would be made with Qatar at the helm. Qatar was never going to isolate Hamas. President Donald Trump took over. The situation is changing. He is leveraging all the players in his favor, so much so that he actually brought Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu into the Oval Office, handed him the phone, and essentially forced him to apologize to the Qatari president. And that's the kind of situation that Trump is completely fed up. He's fed up with this war. He wants it to end. And he knew that without completely isolating Hamas, it would never end. So Hamas is now finally isolated. President Trump has gotten all the Arab states on board to push Hamas to accept this deal. But you listen, the deal's not perfect. Certainly not perfect for Israel. I think Israel is in a position of leverage. We're winning this war internationally through our own public diplomacy. We're not doing so well. But when it comes down to our survival and our existence, that's not our priority. Our priority is to win the war and to leverage this ending of the war to make sure that another war doesn't start up right away. And so many people here in Israel are actually saying, like, the only hope that we have in completely eradicating our enemy is that Hamas rejects this deal. When it comes to the hostages, I want them out. But also it's a difficult situation to release hundreds of terrorists in Israeli prisons that are serving life sentences for killing Jews in exchange for the bodies of maybe 20, 30 hostages and maybe 20 hostages that are still alive. It's a very difficult situation. And no one has any answers. So I guess we'll kind of wait and see, and we'll just hope for the best.
Okay. Gedalia Blum, thank you very much for joining me. And I'm going to shift my focus to the other news. The US President Donald Trump has said that his administration is considering attacking drug cartels entering the United States through land. This comes after the US military struck several boats carrying illicit drugs from Venezuela. The US-Venezuela tensions continue to rise with reports of US military attack on Venezuela. Earlier, Venezuela's President Maduro stated that he is ready to declare a state of emergency in the event of a US military attack. The US had also previously deployed a major naval fleet in the Caribbean Sea and carried out a series of airstrikes against the drug cartels moving towards US. Now the US is mulling action against the drug cartels coming to the United States through land. Right. Andrew Latham on the telecast with me. Thank you very much, Andrew. And of course, I would like to understand from you about this offensive of the American administration on Venezuelan boats. And of course, there have been a number of people who have died in the American military strikes that have targeted these Venezuelan boats. America continues to claim that these are illicit drug cartels that America is targeting. But the president of Venezuela, Maduro, has a different opinion altogether. He claims that this is an attack on Venezuelan sovereignty. This is an attempt by the Trump administration to ouster the government, to create turmoil within the country. How do you think things are going to play out? Because there has been support that has been shown by other South American nations to Venezuela in wake of the American vessels, warheads, submarines at this point of time that have been strategically placed in the Caribbean.
Well, I think both presidents are shading the unfolding reality to suit their own political purposes. This is not about regime change in Venezuela. So President Maduro is misstating that reality, nor is it merely about interdicting drug flows into the United States. President Trump is misrepresenting that reality. What in fact is going on here, and this is the intersection of a number of things, but what's going on here is that Venezuela has fallen increasingly into the orbit of China and has long-standing relationships with Russia, neither of which sit well with an American president who still sees, in very deep historical terms, Latin America as part of the American sphere of influence. So as much as anything else, this is about signaling to the Maduro government that perhaps it's time for them to shift their orientation. That's not going to happen. So we're going to get an increasing tempo of collisions and clashes between the U.S. and Venezuelan forces. And all of that then is triggering historical memories on the part of other Latin American nations who have historically also been on the receiving end of American claims that the Caribbean or the Latin America is somehow America's natural sphere of influence, the so-called Monroe Doctrine, which goes back more than a century. So I see this process unfolding, continuing to unfold, rather. I see the frictions growing. I don't think President Maduro is going to change his policy. I don't think President Trump is going to change his. And really the question is how many external or other actors are going to be drawn into the fray.
Right, absolutely. Andrew, thank you very much for sharing those views. I'm going to shift my focus to the other big development that is taking place right now. As per reports, U.S. President Donald Trump and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth plan to address hundreds of U.S. military officials. Of course, the Pentagon chief has spoken to these military chiefs of America from all across the globe that have gathered today. And what the Pentagon chief has said is that there is a decay in the military establishment and that needs to be completely gotten rid of. The gathering at the Marine Corps base in Quantico near Washington has fueled intense speculation about the purpose and value of summoning such a large number of generals and admirals to one place, with many stationed in more than a dozen countries that include conflict zones in the Middle East as well as other places. The uncertainty comes as America faces a potential government shutdown this week. Andrew, back on the telecast with me. Andrew, what do you think could be the significance of this huge gathering of admirals in Quantico, where President Trump is also going to be, addressing this gathering? The Pentagon chief has come out and made a statement. He was speaking to the admirals, he was speaking to the military leaders of America who have been gathered from a number of conflict zones across the world, and he said that the military establishment is in decay. What is it? What is Pete Hegseth trying to indicate?
Well, this is an unprecedented gathering of American flag officers, generals, and admirals. And you're correct to point out that these officers who are at the sharp edge of American military power around the world have been called from all over the world back to Quantico near Washington. Here is, I think, what's going on. I don't know that there'll be firings, although that's a possibility. But both Secretary Hegseth and President Trump are of the opinion that there's something rotten in the American military, that it's become too woke, to use what I think is an Americanism, too politically correct, to use a slightly old-fashioned term, too inclined to pander to various constituencies in the U.S. that favor LGBTQ plus rights, for example, and that this is undermining the warrior ethos and the warrior spirit of the American armed forces. That may or may not be true. I rather suspect it's not true, but that's certainly what Secretary Hegseth and President Trump believe, and this is likely to be an exercise in the two of them grabbing the collective lapels of the American flag officers in attendance, shaking them and saying, get your act together. Whether that works or not remains to be seen.
Right, absolutely. Stay on with me, Andrew. Let's listen into U.S. President Donald Trump. He is addressing those military leaders in Quantico near Washington.
So this is, I would say, the opposite, if you ask for a definition, the opposite of political correctness. We went through political correct, where you had to have people that were totally unfit to be doing what you're doing for many reasons. I won't get into them, but for many reasons they were unfit. Now it's all based on merit. That was such an unbelievable decision. I didn't expect we were going to win that one. We went in. We said we needed it. We went in for colleges, where kids with a C average are getting into the best colleges, and the kids with A averages won't get in, and kids with the highest boards and the highest marks or the best marks couldn't get into the best schools, and people that had not good boards and not very good marks, okay, but nothing special, they were getting into our best colleges. I said, this is just crazy. You can't run a country like this. And it was lingering for years, and it got to the Supreme Court, and we won that decision. Merit, everything's based on merit. You're all based on merit. We're not going to have somebody taking your place for political reasons because they are politically correct, and you're not. We take the people that are going to do the best job. That's all. It's very simple. And that's the way our country was built. We were built on merit. We got away from it for a long time. And everyone understands it. And it was done. It was approved. I give great credit to the Supreme Court because I thought they had tremendous courage. I didn't think they'd do that. That was tremendous. I give them maybe for that decision almost more than anything because it's a hard decision to make. It's really hard. The apparatus of our country was not set up for merit. It was set up for political correctness. And you can never be great if you're going to do that. And we're going to be greater than we ever were before. We're bringing back a focus on fitness, ability, character, and strength. And that's because the purposes of American military is not to protect anyone's feelings. It's to protect our republic. And it's the republic that we dearly love. It's to protect our country. We will not be politically correct when it comes to defending American freedom. And we will be a fighting and winning machine. We want to fight. We want to win. And we want to fight as little as possible. You have to count on people like me to keep you out of wars because we don't want to go into wars. Many of the wars that I just told you about, we could have entered those wars and settled them in a different way, lose a lot of our troops. And we could have settled them, I guess, differently. Maybe not, actually. Actually, you might not have been able to settle them. We just would have been in the middle of a lot of firepower. But when we do need it, you're going to be so ready. And you know it. But very importantly, with that goal in mind, I've committed to spending over $1 trillion on our military in 2026, and that's the most in the history of our country. $1 trillion. That's a lot of money. I hope you like that. Ma'ams and sirs, I hope you like it. That's a hell of a lot of money. We have the best of everything. Every branch is seeing major investments, and as I announced in the Oval Office in March, we are rapidly moving forward with the first ever 6th generation fighter jet. I didn't name it. I did not name it. Boeing came in and they said, "Sir, this is our submittal. It's the greatest fighting jet ever done." And you know, they're testing all these planes, all the companies are testing, and this one tested like through the roof. And they said, "We'd like to name it the F-47. I said, "All right, let me think about it." Then after thinking for about 2 seconds, I said, "Okay." You know, that means 47. I'm 47. So I'm 45, 46, and 47, you know, if you think about it. I just don't want the credit for 46. I don't want to have their open borders and people coming in from all over the world, including jails and mental institutes. I don't want that on my record, but I like having it. We're investing tens of billions of dollars in modernizing our nuclear deterrence capabilities like never before. And we've begun construction on what we call the Golden Dome missile defense shield. It'll be the most sophisticated in the world. You watched it do well until they had some problems at the end with a little bit of a lack of ammunition, defensive ammunition, but they've got that taken care of. But I tell you, it's what we're doing is so good, and we deserve it. You know, we help other countries with it. We don't have it ourselves. And Canada called me a couple of weeks ago. They want to be part of it. To which I said, "Well, why don't you just join our country? You become 51, become the 51st state, and you get it for free." So I don't know if that made a big impact, but it does make a lot of sense. It actually makes, because they're having a hard time up there in Canada now, because as you know, with tariffs, everyone's coming into our country. We have more investment than we've ever had before, $17 trillion coming in. As an example, in 4 years, Biden didn't have $1 trillion. We have $17 trillion more than that in 8 months coming in. And they're coming in from Canada, Mexico, from Europe, from all over. AI, auto plants. Everybody's coming back to the United States. Under my budget, we will be expanding the U.S. Navy by at least 19 ships next year, including submarines, destroyers, assault ships, and more. And it's going to be much more than that as we go along, because we basically don't build ships anymore. We do build submarines, but we don't build ships. Do you know in the Second World War, they were freighters and different types, but we were doing a ship a day, and now we don't do ships. And I'm not a fan of some of the ships you do. I'm a very aesthetic person, and I don't like some of the ships you're doing aesthetically. They say, "Oh, it's stealth." I say, "That's not stealth. An ugly ship is not necessary in order to say you're stealth." By the way, the B-2 bombers were incredible. That is stealth. They went into that. I was with General Kane and Pete were in we call it the war room, but we're watching them go in, and they were totally untouched. They were not seen. They were literally not seen. They dropped their bombs. They hit every single one of them, hit its target. It was total obliteration. CNN, when we came back, fake news CNN, oh, their camera just went off. You know, their camera, every time I mention, they turn the camera off because it's never good. They say, this is a problem. But I don't blame them. You're better off keeping it off. But they have some scammer reporter who started saying, without any knowledge, that he may not have hit the targets as well as they thought. It may not have been obliteration. He did hit the targets, and they got to give us a little credit, right? It was obliteration, it turned out. The Atomic Energy Commission said it was obliteration. They had, not only did they hit the target, they had these chutes. And think of this here. Way up in the sky, there was no moon. It was dead dark. You couldn't see a thing. You couldn't see them. But they had, I guess, a beam going right into these chutes. Every single one of those bombs went right down those chutes into a granite mountain. I think it's the last time they're going to build air chutes. They had these air chutes that were nice, beautiful. They were meant for us. But it was total obliteration. And now they give us credit for that. But these people were phenomenal. I tell you, for the Air Force people here, you can be very proud. That B-2, we just ordered a lot of new ones and updated ones, but I'd take the other ones. Let me tell you, they couldn't have worked any better. So they flew for 37 hours total, back and forth, no stops, no nothing. We had 52 tankers loading them up, and that's a job I wouldn't necessarily want too much, flying a tanker, loaded up with hundreds of thousands of gallons of fuel. I don't know if I'd do that.